Running Man. One of the most memorable Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and yet it could be said that it is one of his B-list films. Or at least that's how it's generally regarded, because when it comes to Schwarzenegger films, it's the so-called Big Three that everyone focuses on. You know, Conan the Barbarian, The Terminator, The Predator, three films that made him the top of the pops when it came to action movies and made him a household name. But these things you undoubtedly already know, or maybe not. I'm totally guessing. The Running Man, as subversively action-packed and not so subtly telling of how media works, and trust me, I'll get back to that a little later. As the film is, it does pale in comparison to The Terminator or any of the other Big Three. I'm not saying that The Running Man is forgotten about or anything like that. I'm just saying that this movie isn't mentioned enough as it really should be. If it is indeed on the B-list of Schwarzenegger movies like Raw Deal or Red Heat, then it is, in fact, number one. Released in theaters November 13th, 1987, it would be a success, or at least it would come in slightly over budget, which was $27 million, with a box office total of $38 million, which is pretty damn good, but compare those numbers to The Terminator, which was made on a budget of $6.4 million and took in $78 million at the box office, and that was in 1984. Before Schwarzenegger was established as a big-time top action star. In '87, the world was pretty used to old Arnie and was most certainly on his side, so it's odd that The Running Man didn't do better. It has since become a cult classic in its own regard and is highly revered amongst fans of quippy 80s action movies, but it seems like it took a long time to get there. And it also seems like it's buried underneath the Big Three Schwarzenegger movies, which, don't get me wrong, are awesome too. I just don't think The Running Man gets its just due. It's got everything: action, adventure, intrigue, an almost Orwellian story, Jesse the Body Ventura, and that guy who played The Undertaker in Back to the Future Part 3. Okay, so maybe that one's not as big of an accolade, but still. As you know, the story is one of dystopia. And as I had mentioned in the previous Tonight's Viewing episode, no one did dystopian movies quite like the 80s. The movie takes place in the future, all the way into 2017. Yeah, we can laugh about that now because it's 2022, but in '87, that was a perfectly plausible futuristic setting. The movie centers around a game show called, you guessed it, The Running Man, a ratings firecracker that places criminals, or rather people that the state has deemed criminals, into a labyrinthian wasteland battleground that is comprised of what's left after society's collapse. Yes, being a dystopian movie, there are dystopian shenanigans all over the place. The contestants then try to make it out alive while being hunted by what are called stalkers, hired goons that can only be described as a delightful mix between professional wrestlers and characters from Time Killers. The stalkers are free to use any means necessary to dispatch the contestants, and by dispatch I mean brutally murder. It's encouraged, it's fun, and it's legal. Yes, The Running Man is a marketing powerhouse, and in this reality goes on to be the most famous game show of all time. It's sort of like The Price is Right, except there's gladiatorial combat, brutal murder, and it's not like The Price is Right at all. As I had mentioned, The Running Man is a dystopian movie, and being a dystopian movie, everything has gone to shit, except for the media, especially television, which is now state-run. Most of the people are made blissfully unaware of what's really happening and are by proxy very content with their reality. The state has successfully distracted them with spectacular television. And since the state now controls television, they also manipulate the news so the public has no idea of the shit the government is really up to. Not only do they manipulate the context, but as we see in the film, they're also capable of manipulating the actual footage. So being that this is the case, it of course is an outlet for the government to push whatever agenda they want. Remember when I said that this film is not so subtly telling of how the media really works? Well, here it is. Life indeed imitates art. Now, I'm not saying that our trustworthy government is using the media to push agendas, cover up the truth, and murder people, or maybe I am. All I'm saying is if they were, we wouldn't know about it, would we? Yeah. Anywho, my relationship with this movie is very extensive, as I have seen it many, many times. The first time being when I was 9 or 10, and it was on ABC as one of their Sunday night movies. Remember when major networks used to play movies? Man, that's so strange to think that ABC would play The Running Man. So yes, I had seen this movie a lot in my lifetime, but I hadn't seen it in a while, so I decided to fire this bad boy up and give it a whirl. And the bad boy I'm talking about is my 1994 Avid Home Video distribution. But that's what's sort of strange, because it's an Avid Home Video production, but it was actually distributed by Live. Though Avid does seem to get all the credit, the distribution, however, was not up to them. An odd and oftentimes unnoticed factoid within the history of VHS is that a company who is responsible for formatting, manufacturing, and producing a VHS isn't always the same company who distributes it. Sometimes they're totally different companies, as in the case for this 1994 Avid Home Video distribution of The Running Man. Why is that? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Well, the answer is money, as it usually is. Yes, money, money, money. Hubba, hubba, hubba. Who do you trust? Manufacturing a VHS and distributing one are two entirely different and expensive beasts. Man, I hate pluralizing a word that ends with ST. Obtaining a film's home video licensing rights and manufacturing rights is expensive enough, let alone the distribution part of it. So a smaller company would oftentimes pair up with another small company to make the dream happen. Yes, teamwork makes the dream work. And bigger companies like Warner Brothers or Paramount don't have to worry about this silly stuff, as they're big enough to afford all the different heads of the home video hydra. Now, Avid Home Video, or Avid Home Entertainment as it's really called, is quite a mysterious company. It was established in late 1990 and would go on to be a pretty heavy home video hitter throughout the better part of that decade. It eventually went defunct in 1997, and in between that time, not only would it rely on other companies to distribute its titles, but it would also serve as a budget club of sorts for other home video distributors. Yeah, it was primarily a subsidiary of Live Home Entertainment, but it would also be associated with Vestron Video, Carol Co., and Family Home Entertainment, and produce budget-friendly VHS of the titles in those companies' libraries. It was a cost-efficient measure that resulted in lower-quality VHS. Yeah, these would be the movies that you would find in the electronics section in stores like Ames or Jamesway for $10. You know, those VHS. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It ended up being very profitable, and everybody was happy from company to customer. Let's not forget that the 90s was the beginning of the era of affordable VHS. They were easier to make, and therefore were cheaper. And Avid Home Entertainment took tremendous advantage of this, as they seemingly only existed for that purpose. But the distribution part really wasn't their bag, which is why they got Live Home Entertainment to do that. So with the financial backing of a strong distributor and cheap manufacturing cost, The Running Man ended up being a massively produced VHS, which is why this 1994 Avid Home Entertainment version is the most commonly found. But of course, this is not the only distribution of The Running Man. The first one was in 1988. And before Avid Home Entertainment came along, Live Home Entertainment did the same thing with Vestron Video for this distribution. The pendulum swings both ways, because again, since manufacturing a VHS and distributing a VHS are two very different and very expensive parts of the VHS market, Live Home Entertainment wanted to distribute the VHS but not manufacture it. So in 1988, they paired up with Vestron Video to do just that. And the two companies would share the profits. It's just like being business partners. And this would be a theme for The Running Man's life on VHS, as the final distribution in 1999 was put out by Republic Pictures Home Video and Artisan Home Entertainment. And that later distribution was released in a neat prismatic slipcover. And they did that for a lot of re-releases of Schwarzenegger classics in 1999. I'm not sure why. I guess because it's cute. But we're not talking about the 1988 or the 1999 distribution, mainly because I don't have them. We're talking about the 1994 distribution. And it's not really special. It's The Running Man, so that's good. Mission accomplished. And I gotta tell you, upon viewing this for the first time in a little while, The Running Man certainly holds up. It's a great action movie, an underrated science fiction movie, and certainly very telling of our society. It's one of those dystopian future movies that you don't really think about that often. And I totally forgot that Mick Fleetwood and Dweezil Zappa are in this. Why? I mean, I don't have a problem with this, but it's an odd casting choice. Sort of like, why the hell is Reba McEntyre in Tremors? Is it McIntyre? Because it's spelled McIntyre, but people say it McIntyre. Oh, whatever. Dweezil Zappa is one of the sons of Frank Zappa. I mean, of course he is. That's a pretty unique last name. And Mick Fleetwood is the drummer and namesake for the band Fleetwood Mac. You might have heard of them. And he plays the leader of the underground resistance, and his character's name is Mick. So, is he playing himself? Because he talks about his songs being burned by the government. So, is this supposed to be Mick Fleetwood? Why not? I mean, it's weird, but why not? I wouldn't really consider Fleetwood Mac songs to be subversive and dissentive to the state, but obviously the government does. If indeed this character is supposed to be Mick Fleetwood, and if he is, what happened to the rest of the band? Did they die? Are they in a prison camp? Well, what's going on here? It's fun to think about, and it adds a totally different level to this movie. It was directed by Paul Michael Glasser. Who the hell is he? Good question. I'll tell you. You might know him as Detective Starsky from the 70s television show Starsky and Hutch. Yes, he was in Starsky and Hutch. And he was also in the 1971 film adaptation of Fiddler on the Roof. And he's also acted in a ton of other stuff too, and directed a ton of other stuff, like the 1996 Shaquille O'Neal instant classic Kazaam. Oh man, you guys might have been better off doing a Shaq Fu movie instead. Well, I just think it's interesting that The Running Man was directed by a guy with such an eclectic career. Another thing that's interesting about The Running Man is the poster. Look at this. I mean, it's The Running Man, but he's not running. He's doing the opposite of running. It should be called The Staring Man. So The Running Man is a movie with a poster that doesn't really show you what the movie's about. Instead, it just shows you who the leading role is. And if you notice, this is a trend with Schwarzenegger movies. I mean, look at the poster for The Predator. It's a movie about an alien hunter that comes to stalk people, and yet Schwarzenegger is the prominent face on the poster. In fact, he's the only person on the poster. And this is true for most Schwarzenegger movies. Not only the movies, but any kind of promotional material or merchandise that would go along with said movie. Just take a look at the cards for the Terminator 2 figures, and look at the Last Action Hero pinball table back glass, for heaven's sakes. I mean, is this a Last Action Hero pinball table or an Arnold Schwarzenegger pinball table? Ah, the joke's on you. It's both. Now, I've heard, and I'm not sure if it's true, that any contract Schwarzenegger has contains a stipulation that states any merchandise, promotional items, or posters pertaining to whatever project he's involved in must prominently display his likeness. Again, I'm not sure if that's true, but based on everything I've seen, it seems like it is. If you haven't seen The Running Man, and I'm always surprised at the amount of people who tell me they haven't seen it, then watch it. You will enjoy it. It's not that long of a movie. It's certainly action-packed and immensely interesting, and you will draw parallels between their reality and our own. And if you've seen it but haven't seen it in a while, check it out again. Trust me, it holds up. Be sure to check out the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship Facebook page for the Facebook exclusive mini video explaining the Running Man Uplink Code Challenge. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to hit subscribe. Take care out there, and until next time, mateys, be sure to keep running. And I'll see you next time, only on Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship.
Don't define yourself in a full power!